Discovered my Oblivious Coworker's husband is emotionally entangled with another woman, and he's trapping me in Complicity. I, 38F, met my friend Dave, 42 male, about 4 years ago in an online gaming forum. During the entire time we talked, I became friends with his wife Brenda, 43F, and he became friends with my fiancé Mikkel, 38 meters. I live by the rule in a relationship that if there is conversation that I wouldn't feel comfortable showing my significant other, then I don't need to be having that conversation. At no point did Dave ever cross a line with me, nor was there ever inappropriate conversation. This is important. About a year and a half ago, summertime, Mikkel got a big promotion and we hosted a fun weekend-long celebration at our home. We invited Dave and Brenda, who live 5 hours from us, and this was the first time we actually met them in person. I instantly connected with Brenda, as she was so authentic and sweet. We all got along well, and even started talking about doing future get-togethers and vacations. It seemed perfect. At this time my company was doing major layoffs and I was looking for a new career. Brenda has worked at a remote company for over a decade and recommended I apply. After a few intense interviews, I was hired. Quick side note, Dave had been injured in work-related accident that had gone to court. He sued and won. He was permanently disabled because of the accident and can no longer work at his profession. That, along with a large life insurance policy from his parents, he is financially set for life. He stays home and raises their daughter Leah, 5, while Brenda does her remote work from the house as well. So, a little over a year ago, during the fall, a few months after the celebration weekend, Dave and Brenda were getting ready to take their daughter Leah, 5, on a vacation. Before they left for the airport, Dave said he needed to talk to me. It was urgent, so I stepped away to take the call. Dave then told me he had literally nobody else to talk to this about, and was deeply depressed, and needed to confide in me as a friend. I really wish he hadn't. He told me that the night before he had gotten into a huge fight with who he calls his best friend, Rachel, 41F. I had heard about Rachel but never met her, and didn't know too much about her, to be honest. What I did know, Dave, Brenda and Rachel had been friends in college, approximately 20-year-long friendship. She had visited at Dave and Brenda's house several times over the years, and that Rachel allegedly had been in a string of bad relationships of which Dave had to bail her out financially a few times. That's about it. Here comes the information that I wish Dave hadn't told me, as it has completely changed how I view my friend. Dave told me that Rachel confessed to him the night before that she knew he was attracted to her. Yes, she is gorgeous. Dave said he has always been attracted to her physically, but mentally her personality, specifically her shallowness, was a huge turnoff for him. Some unkind things were said about Brenda letting herself go since having Leah, which disgusted me. He then said Rachel confessed that she is frustrated with her never-ending chain of bad relationships and wants to finally settle down. She knows he is wealthy and can give her the life she feels she deserves. She wants him to leave Brenda and Leah, move to Rachel's city, buy her a large house, and let her be his trophy wife. I choked back a laugh at this because I literally thought it was a joke. Seriously? She admits to not being physically attracted to him. Okay, who says things like that? But knows she can satisfy him and he can give her the lifestyle she deserves. She just demands that he has to completely cut off the life he has now, including all friends and family, and be with her. What is worse, Rachel has been planning this for literally years. Sitting in their home, eating their food, drinking their wine, holding Leah, laughing with Brenda, all while planning this. I was floored. I asked what Brenda thought of all this. He said he didn't tell her. I asked him how Rachel took it when he told her to F off. He said he didn't. He doesn't want to lose her as a friend and he even considered her proposition. I felt sick. I told him I was shocked, and to me, even if he decides not to take Rachel up on it, this is a betrayal to Brenda. Dave explained that while his and my conversations consisted of gaming, stupid memes, and planning potential couples vacations, his conversations with Rachel were emotional and raw. They spoke for hours on end, every single day, while he was caring for Leah, and while Brenda was working in the next room. Okay, you stop. He asked my opinion, and I told him he has two options, either leave Brenda, or completely break off all contact with Rachel and focus on his marriage. But since he asked, in my opinion Brenda needed to know. Especially since she considered Rachel a friend, and knowing that Rachel wants to screw over Brenda and Leah. Seriously, typing this disgusts me. After the call ended I told Mikkel about it. He was as shocked as I was, but asked what I was going to do. I just sat there trying to digest what I had just heard. Dave, Brenda and Leah went on their vacation. During this time we didn't communicate. When he got back he told me that he had cut Rachel off, but refused to tell Brenda about it. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't agree with his action to not tell her, but it's not my life, not my relationship. He asked for advice and I gave it. I told him that in my eyes, he had betrayed his wife, whether physically or not, and I still felt that Brenda deserved to know. Almost immediately I felt myself pulling away from Dave. My image of him was damaged. When I interact with Brenda online for work, I'm professional and friendly, but it's painful keeping this secret. However, as time passed I began to think that perhaps this was over. Dave had just made a stupid mistake and was just thinking about what could be. He didn't actually leave her, right? And most importantly, he cut Rachel out. Dave and I begin talking a bit more. I actually thought maybe things can go back to the way they were. Since didn't actually physically cheat, maybe it's best that Brenda doesn't know, for her own mental health and happiness. Maybe we can move past this. So many thoughts going through my mind. So many ways of rationalizing this. The mental gymnastics were Olympics level impressive. Then about a month ago he drops the bomb. He tells me that Rachel and he are talking again. She allegedly begged him for forgiveness, and cried that she is going through another horrible breakup and needs his friendship, or else she doesn't know what she might do. He said he is going to keep her at arm's length, but she needs him. He will just be there for her a little bit, but it won't be like it was before. Oh holy night. To my chagrin, love that word, as the weeks pass he begins to mention her more and more. I tell him I don't want to hear about her, and when he keeps going I finally snap and tell him note I'm so pissed that Dave is talking to Rachel again, and that he doesn't care about the guilt and strain this puts on me, especially since I have to interact with his wife, Brenda, every single day. It's completely unfair that he told me about his situationship with Rachel, knowing full well that I consider Brenda a friend and work with her constantly. I've begged him to tell Brenda, she deserves the right to decide if she wants to stay in this marriage or not. What infuriates me just as much is that he's still friends with a woman, Rachel, who wishes hurt and pain on his wife and little girl. How does he sleep at night? Dave keeps talking about planning vacations together with Mikkel and me, but I don't even respond anymore. Honestly, I don't know how I could ever sit at dinner with them and keep quiet, especially if Rachel comes up in conversation, and since there's always wine, I know I won't be able to hide my feelings. I have one of those faces that betrays every thought, which is why I always prefer working remotely rather than face to face with clients. I dread the day when Dave or Brenda announce that Rachel is coming to visit again. I try to pretend it won't happen, but let's be real, Dave is a complete idiot who somehow prevented his marriage from falling apart, only to turn around and douse himself in gasoline, opening the door for the gorgeous yet shallow talking lit match that is Rachel. I want to cut him out of my life entirely because his actions disgust me, but I know Brenda would be upset and would drill me about it, especially since they've been planning a trip to Europe for next year and want us to come along. Should I just tell her Dave and I had a falling out? Should I find a way to warn Brenda not to trust Rachel? I never wanted to know any of this. I'm furious that he dumped it on me. We were friends, yes, but not that kind of friend. As for Brenda, if I were in her place, I'd want to know that I was friends with, and playing host to, a woman who wanted to steal my husband and the father of my child. But I'm also worried about my job, my livelihood. Brenda has been with the company for over 10 years, while I've only been there a year. I've kept this secret from her for so long, and if I say anything, could it affect my employment? Should I just pull away and, when asked, claim I'm too busy? Just to clarify, when I say friend, Brenda and I are more than acquaintances, but definitely not besties. I've always been closer to Dave, mostly because we game together. But before he unloaded this secret on me, our conversations were always light, talking about Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, going to festivals, or making future vacation plans. We haven't actually joined them on any vacations. Money was always too tight before Mikkel's promotion and before I landed this job, so those were plans for the future. We've only met once in person, during Mikkel's promotion weekend last summer, but we always made plans to visit or meet in the city, though something always fell through. Our friendship was supposed to be a break from the stress of life, meant to be fun and lighthearted. As for Brenda, she recommended me for the position at her company, though I had to earn it on my own. She isn't my boss, but she has seniority. Before that phone call with Dave, I'd hoped Brenda and I would become closer friends, and that we'd all be a tight group. Since this all started last year, I've kept my distance and let my relationship with Brenda wither. I have no proof. The conversation where Dave told me everything happened over the phone, I didn't record it, and I live in a two-party state, so recording would be illegal anyway. If I told Brenda, it would be my word against his, and if she confronted him, he could deny it all or spin the story against me. That's what makes me so anxious about my job. I really do not want to lose it, nor do I want things to get awkward around the office. I would love nothing more than to give Brenda a heads up about what's happening, but I simply can't afford to lose my job. I cannot stress this enough. If I knew I could warn her without hurting my own situation, I would in a heartbeat. It might sound like I've already made up my mind, but I promise, I'm still confused, still searching for a way out of this mess. I just wish there was something I could do without risking everything. Update 1. I had mentioned that I would wait until after Thanksgiving to make my decision because I didn't want to ruin the holiday for Brenda and Leah. During that stretch of time, I realized that if I lost my job, it would suck, but I could find another one. I had to do what was right, not just for everyone involved, but for my own sanity. Yesterday, with Mikkel in my corner, offering steady support, I sent out a group message to both Brenda and Dave. Hope you guys had a happy Thanksgiving. To my complete surprise, Brenda responded, yeah, not so much. I asked what had happened, only to hear that Rachel's mom was in the hospital with pneumonia, and Dave had apparently gone to be with her for moral support. Brenda ended up hosting Thanksgiving alone. Dave, notably, didn't respond to my message. Mikkel leaned in and whispered that this might be the window I'd been waiting for, and he reassured me that whatever I decided, he'd support me. So I took a deep breath and messaged, I'm amazed how forgiving you are, Brenda. I don't think I could be so chill. Dave immediately replied with a terse. But before I could process that, Brenda called me, straight out of the blue. I nervously put her on speaker. She cut right to it, asking what I meant by my comment. I replied, after what happened last year. With Dave and Rachel. Before you guys left for vacation. Her reaction told me everything. Dave had not, in fact, come clean. She asked me to elaborate, and so I did. I told her absolutely everything. I also apologized, explaining that I'd tried to convince Dave to tell her himself, but I never knew for sure if anything more had actually happened between them. Maybe there was still a chance to fix things. Since Rachel was back in their lives, I had assumed they'd found a way to move past it, especially since Brenda and Rachel had been close friends since college. Then came the curveball. Brenda told me, almost too calmly, no, Rachel never went to college. She met Dave online about 10 years ago. She's never been to college or even had a real job. She asked if there was anything else. All at once, panic kicked in. I started fumbling over my words, losing whatever confidence I had left, and confessed that the reason I hadn't come forward was because I had no concrete proof. I'd been worried ever since working with her, afraid to say anything for fear of risking my job, until now. I was spiraling at this point. Brenda said she had to go and hung up. I just sat there, shaken to my core, stomach twisted with anxiety. It wasn't until 2 whole hours later that Brenda called me back. Some of you would have seen this coming. When Brenda confronted Dave and Rachel, they claimed that I had propositioned him, and that I was jealous of Dave and Rachel's friendship, that I wanted what Brenda had. My entire body started shaking. I actually began to cry. At that point, Mikkel couldn't take it anymore. He interrupted Brenda, telling her that he hadn't witnessed the full conversation but had heard enough to know that what I was saying was the truth. She tried to cut him off, but he insisted. He told her he was sick of seeing how twisted up I'd become, and after today he wanted Dave gone from our lives, no exceptions. Then Mikkel hung up. About half an hour later, I got a text from Brenda. She apologized for all of us being dragged into this mess, admitted she was embarrassed that I knew about it, and explained that Mikkel hadn't let her finish what she needed to say. She said she'd just been repeating what Dave and Rachel had said, and then she dropped an absolutely show-stopping bombshell. She already knew what was up. In fact, she'd known since last year. The only thing she hadn't realized was that I was aware of it too. She said the way Dave acted on vacation last year, like a heartbroken lovesick puppy, immediately raised red flags for her. She had a gut feeling that something was seriously wrong with him and Rachel. As soon as they got back home, she started digging, going through his computer, his phone, and his iPad. It turned out Rachel wasn't the only one. Apparently, there were others, but she was the only one Dave actually met up with. The other women only wanted his money. I asked Brenda if she was okay, or if she was worried about Dave coming back. She told me she already had a lawyer and had spent the past several months getting her affairs in order. She was planning to give him divorce papers after Thanksgiving, but, after his disappearing act this holiday, she took the chance to change the locks and started boxing up his belongings instead. My information, and Dave's and Rachel's attempt to flip the narrative, just made her decision that much easier. Honestly, Brenda amazed me. I don't even know if changing the locks is legal, but damn, I have to admire her tenacity. She apologized again for Dave and I told her I was sorry, too, for not coming forward sooner. She also told me that if she hadn't already known about Dave's shadiness, and hadn't read a lot of our messages, which she described as pretty boring, ouch, but true, she might not have believed me. It was a truly impossible situation, but I told her if she needed to talk, we were always here for her. If not, I'd respect her distance and just be her coworker. Either way, as far as I'm concerned, I'm finished with Dave. Honestly, fuck Dave. Update 2. Well, I thought my drama with Dave and Rachel was over. I was so incredibly wrong. It's been about 3 weeks since Brenda changed the locks and started divorce proceedings. Things had been blissfully quiet, no messages from Dave, work was going smoothly, and Brenda and I had even started having actual conversations again. Not deep friendship territory, but professional with hints of warmth. I genuinely thought we were all moving forward. Then last Tuesday happened. I was working from home when I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Rachel. Somehow this woman had gotten my personal phone number, and she was pissed. She started screaming at me about how I destroyed her life and ruined everything. Apparently, Dave had been telling her that I was obsessed with him and jealous of their connection. According to Rachel's version of events, I had manipulated Brenda into believing lies because I wanted Dave for myself. The delusion was honestly impressive. But here's where it gets really crazy. Rachel told me that she and Dave had actually been sleeping together for over 2 years. Not just emotional cheating, but full-blown affair territory. She said they'd meet up whenever she visited, which explained why Dave was always so eager for those trips to see his college friend. I was stunned. This meant that when Dave confessed to me about Rachel's proposition, he was already deep into an affair and was essentially testing the waters to see if he could get me to help him justify leaving Brenda. The manipulation was next-level disgusting. Rachel then dropped another bomb. She's pregnant. 8 weeks along, and yes, it's Dave's. I literally dropped my phone. When I picked it back up, Rachel was still ranting about how this was all my fault, how Dave was supposed to be with her by now, and how I'd stolen her future. She hung up after threatening to make me pay for ruining her plans. I immediately called Mikkel, who told me to document everything and maybe consider getting a restraining order. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I called Brenda. Brenda picked up on the first ring, and before I could even speak, she said, "Let me guess. Rachel called you too?" Turns out, Rachel had been calling Brenda nonstop for the past week, alternating between sobbing apologies and vicious threats. Brenda had already blocked her on everything, but Rachel kept calling from different numbers. Then Brenda told me something that made my blood run cold. Dave had been by the house 3 times in the past week, trying to get in. The first time, he banged on the door for an hour, alternating between begging and screaming. The second time, he tried to climb through a window. The third time, yesterday, he brought Rachel with him. Brenda said she watched from upstairs as Dave and Rachel stood in her driveway, clearly arguing. She could hear Rachel yelling something about the plan and Dave telling her to shut up. They left when a neighbor came out and asked if everything was okay. That's when Brenda told me she'd hired a private investigator months ago, and they'd uncovered way more than just the affair. Dave had been borrowing against his settlement money to fund Rachel's lifestyle, expensive clothes, rent for a luxury apartment, even a car. He'd blown through nearly $200,000 over 2 years. The PI also found evidence of at least 3 other women he'd been sending money to through various dating apps. But here's the kicker, Dave never actually cut Rachel off like he told me. The whole "I ended things with her" story was complete BS. According to bank records and phone logs, they never stopped talking. They never stopped seeing each other. The entire time Dave was telling me how guilty he felt and how he was trying to save his marriage, he was actively planning his exit strategy with Rachel. I felt sick. Not just because of the betrayal to Brenda, but because I'd been played too. Dave had used our friendship and my concern for Brenda to create the perfect cover story. Every time I pushed him to tell Brenda the truth, he could go back to Rachel and say he was handling me, keeping me quiet. Brenda's lawyer advised her to get a restraining order against both Dave and Rachel, which she filed this morning. She also said that Dave's been trying to access their joint accounts, but she'd already moved everything to accounts he couldn't touch. The scariest part? Rachel apparently told one of Dave's neighbors that she knew where I lived and worked. Mikkel and I have been staying at his sister's place since Wednesday, and I've been working remotely all week. My boss has been great about it. Apparently Brenda filled him in on enough details to make him understand this wasn't just regular drama. I keep thinking about how Dave positioned himself as this devoted father and husband who was just confused and made a mistake. Meanwhile, he was systematically planning to abandon his 5-year-old daughter for a woman who's apparently been playing him for his money while pregnant with his child. It's like the whole friendship was built on lies. The most heartbreaking part is that little Leah keeps asking Brenda where Daddy is. Brenda said she's been trying to keep things normal, but it's hard when Dave shows up randomly and Rachel calls at all hours. She's looking into getting Leah some counseling to help her understand why Daddy isn't living at home anymore. I don't know what Dave and Rachel's next move is, but something tells me this isn't over. Rachel sounded absolutely unhinged on the phone, and Dave clearly isn't handling the reality that his perfect plan has completely fallen apart. I never wanted to be in the middle of this mess, and now I'm genuinely scared about what they might do next. Update 3. I thought I'd seen the worst of Dave and Rachel's insanity. I was wrong. So incredibly, devastatingly wrong. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and I genuinely didn't know if I should even post this. Mikkel keeps telling me I should focus on moving forward, but honestly, writing this out helps me process what the hell just happened to my life. Last Monday started normal enough. Brenda and I had our usual morning check-in call about a project we're collaborating on. She seemed lighter somehow, mentioned that Dave had finally stopped showing up at the house and that Leah was doing better in counseling. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe we could all start healing from this nightmare. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. Just a photo. It was me walking into my office building, taken from across the street. No message, just the photo. My blood went cold. I immediately called building security and Mikkel, who left work early to pick me up. But here's where things get really twisted. When Mikkel and I got home, there was a package on our doorstep. No delivery truck, no signature required, just sitting there. Inside was a pregnancy test, positive, a sonogram photo, and a handwritten note from Rachel. "This is what you took from me. Dave was going to be the father he never got to be with Leah. You destroyed a family before it could even start." I'm not proud of what happened next, but I completely lost it. I started laughing, not because anything was funny, but because the absurdity broke something in my brain. Rachel was acting like she was the victim here, like she hadn't systematically manipulated a married man and destroyed his actual existing family. Mikkel took the note and called the police while I sat on our couch having what I can only describe as a complete mental breakdown. The officer who responded was surprisingly understanding and added the package to the growing file of evidence for the restraining order. That's when things got really scary. Wednesday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Brenda. 17. When I called her back, she was barely coherent. Dave had shown up at her house at 3 a.m., drunk, screaming, and apparently wielding a crowbar. He'd smashed her car windshield and was trying to break down the front door, yelling about how I'd poisoned her against him and that Rachel was carrying his child and deserved to be part of Leah's life. The neighbors called the police, and Dave was arrested. But not before he told the responding officers that Brenda was keeping his daughter from him and that I was a homewrecker who seduced him and then lied about it when he rejected me. The audacity was breathtaking. Here's what I learned from Brenda later. Dave had been telling Rachel that I was obsessed with him from the beginning of our friendship. According to his version, I'd been flirting with him for years, and when he started getting close to Rachel, I became jealous and vindictive. He painted himself as the poor victim caught between two crazy women fighting over him. Rachel, apparently believing every word, had decided that destroying my life was justified revenge. The photo surveillance, the threatening calls, the package, it was all her trying to protect her family from the woman who stole her man. But wait, it gets worse. Friday evening, I got a call from my HR department. Someone had filed a complaint against me, claiming I was having an inappropriate relationship with a married coworker and that I'd been sexually harassing him. They wouldn't tell me who filed it, but they needed to investigate. I knew immediately it was Dave. Somehow, even from jail, he was still trying to destroy my life. I spent the entire weekend documenting every interaction I'd ever had with Dave, screenshots of our gaming conversations, witness statements from Mikkel about the calls, everything. My boss, thankfully, knows enough about the situation to be skeptical of any claims against me, but HR has to follow protocol. Monday brought the most shocking revelation yet. Brenda called me, and she was crying, not sad crying, but angry, frustrated crying. She'd gotten the results back from Dave's financial investigation, and it was so much worse than anyone imagined. Dave hadn't just been sending money to Rachel and random women online. He'd taken out a second mortgage on their house without Brenda's knowledge. He'd cashed out his entire life insurance policy. He'd even borrowed against Leah's college fund, money that had been set aside from his parents' estate specifically for her education. The total? Nearly $400,000. Gone, all of it spent on Rachel and his online girlfriends over the past 3 years. But here's the part that made me physically sick. Rachel wasn't just some victim being manipulated by a wealthy man. She was running a long con. The PI found evidence that she'd done this before, at least twice. She'd target men with money, play the victim, get pregnant, whether it was actually theirs or not, and drain their accounts before disappearing. Dave wasn't her first mark. He probably won't be her last. The pregnancy might not even be his. When I asked Brenda how she was handling all this, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that honestly broke my heart. I keep thinking about all the times Rachel was in my home, holding my daughter, eating dinner at my table. She was calculating how much everything was worth the entire time. Dave made bail yesterday. His first stop wasn't to see his daughter or try to reconcile with his wife. It was to Rachel's apartment. Brenda's neighbor saw him there, and apparently they were loading boxes into his car. I think they're running. The restraining order doesn't mean much if they leave the state, and with Dave's legal troubles mounting and Rachel's history of disappearing when things get complicated, I have a feeling they're about to vanish together. Part of me hopes they do. Maybe if they're gone, Brenda and Leah can start rebuilding their lives without constantly looking over their shoulders. Maybe I can stop jumping every time my phone rings or someone walks too close behind me in a parking lot. But another part of me is terrified that this is just the calm before the storm. Rachel strikes me as the type who doesn't let go of a grudge easily, and Dave. Well, Dave has already proven he's capable of shocking betrayals. The HR investigation is still ongoing, but my boss pulled me aside yesterday to let me know that he's not taking the complaint seriously. Apparently, the timeline doesn't match up, and Dave's recent arrest record isn't exactly helping his credibility. Brenda and I have been talking more, not as friends exactly, but as two people who survived the same disaster. She's been incredibly kind about the whole thing, even apologizing for Dave dragging me into their mess. I keep telling her it's not her fault, but I can see the guilt eating at her. She's been looking at houses in other states. She wants a fresh start for her and Leah, somewhere Dave can't just show up unannounced. I don't blame her. As for me, I'm still staying at Mikkel's sister's place. We're looking at apartments together, figured it was time to take that step anyway, and recent events have made it clear that I need better security than my old place offered. I thought this would all be over by now. I thought Dave would face consequences, Rachel would disappear, and we'd all move on with our lives. Instead, I feel like I'm stuck in some twisted soap opera that just keeps getting more unbelievable. The scary part is, I don't think it's over yet.